Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die, and can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability? Hi there, I'm joined with Brad Johnson. Now Brad channels Adronis. He's been doing this since 2008. Brad, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, I appreciate it.
So 2008, what happened then?
Well, I was starting to get more into science fiction. I wanted to make a novel all about the extraterrestrial presence. And as I started to look into the real things about what was happening, I went on the internet, I started looking at psychics, intuitives, channels, Black Ops community personnel to get an idea about what was the extraterrestrial presence all about. As I started to research it a lot more, I found that through meditation you can connect through these beings. And these beings believe in a one infinite creator, and meditation allows you to connect a lot more with these energies. And I was just blown away by this. I said, well, I don't really want to do a novel now because I got all this incredible information that I'm seeing. And so I decided to put the novel aside, and I was just so fascinated about meditation. So I went into the library, took out a book called Learn How to Meditate, read it from front cover to back cover, did all the exercises in it, and I just went really, really deep. I started going into, it was almost kind of like a video game, like a first-person experience. And I was going into these mazes, I was seeing these beautiful crystal balls of light, I was actually touching them with my hands, and I could feel the energy flowing through my physical body. I would go to sleep at night, and I would get all these non-physical classroom teachings from light beings. And then I'd wake up the next morning knowing things I didn't know before. So this really propelled me into looking more into meditation. It then got me into channeling because I was looking at all these incredible channels sharing this information. And I said, this has been the missing part of my life because I was born into a religion that I really did not care for. I really did not care for the religious aspect, but I really got excited about meditation and true spirituality. So as I started to get into meditation, I got into channeling. And this is what really began my journey, doing channeled writing and then moving on to vocal channeling, to which I do today.
So going back to the time before this started then, where were you in life? What was happening with yourself at that point?
Well, I was doing a lot of computer work. I was doing technical PC support. I was doing marketing as well too. Again, I was doing writing on the side. I was even looking into video game creation as well. So I was doing a lot of different things, but they really didn't make me happy. It was just something that was kind of interesting or maybe something that was kind of cool, but it really wasn't something that was pulling my interest to that great degree. So I just knew that when I found this, when I discovered the spirituality, I was very, very excited about something that really meant the world to me, the whole open-heartedness. And so this is what I really wanted to do with the rest of my life, was to follow the spiritual path to see where it could take me.
So how much were you going through change at that time then, when you sort of, found this pathway? Obviously, the old Brad, was dying off in a sense, and there was this, expanded version of yourself that was coming forth. So what did that do to, family and friends?
I had to leave a lot of that behind. I had old family and old friends who were saying that, what's gotten into you? Have you lost your mind? What are you doing? Are you preaching the good word? Are you turning into a Christian preacher or something? And I just had a lot of people that looked at me like I had three heads. And I had a big decision to make because this was something that was the most exciting thing in my life. Yet I had family who was not digesting what I was going through. And I basically had to make a big decision. And I just knew that what I discovered was about knowing about my truth, learning about what is the truth of life, what is the truth about why we're here. And that is something I knew that would affect working with a lot of people. And even if my own family and my own friends back at the time couldn't get that, I just wished them well, and I had to go on my own. And so that's what I did. I was basically in a state of solitude for about a year and a half at least, and started to look into channeling, into connecting with the being that I connect with, Adronis, and being able to get an understanding of saying that this is what I want to do, this is who I am. And even though my family and friends can't understand it, they will always have their own path, and so I'm respecting that. So I had to really soul search myself, going through my own dark night of the soul for that year and a half of time.
And what sort of material was you coming across at the time that was really helping you on your path?
Well, when Adronis came through, when he started channeling through me, a lot of it was just learning about reality, was learning about why we're truly here, and learning more beyond the aspect of purpose, because we often think that what's my purpose here on this planet, and it's not about purpose, it's about nature, right? So when I started to connect with Adronis a lot more, he taught me a 180-degree perspective of everything that I was told in regards to modern civilization and modern society. You have to have a family, you have to make good money, you have to have a big house, you have to have a car, you can retire at 65. And this is the grandest illusion that we're shown. And so when I started to connect with Adronis, he was helping me open up to universal consciousness. He was helping me understand that I was more than my physical body, that I was more than this physical life, and that when you start to make peace with yourself completely, you're living the true life. And that's what's really changed my whole outlook on everything.
So when you first met Adronis, what was that meeting like?
It was starting off in the way where I was doing my channeled writing. And my friend, who was also a channeler, emailed me and said, "Hey, Brad, there's somebody here from Sirius, from the star of Sirius, and it feels like he wants to get in touch with you, and I just wanted to pass that along." So I said, okay. So I went into my channeled writing state, and I just started to write things down, and started a conversation as I connected with the star of Sirius. And he referred to himself as, "I am Adronis of Sirius. I'm a future version of you, 297 years in the future. I've come back at this time to share this information with you. And as you spiritually evolve, you will be able to take people with you to spiritually evolve alongside with you. Is this something that you want to do?" And I said, absolutely. This is something that I did want to do. And so as I started to begin my channeling a lot more, I was, going through family pressure and friend pressure at that time. And they said, "How do you know what you're doing is actually real? How do you know that this is actually true?" And he said, "All right, well, I guess the only way I can do that is to prove to myself that this is real." So I went out to my balcony and I just started looking up at the skies. And I said, if there are any ships, any spacecraft that's out there that can just show me that you're real, that you're here, so I'm not going crazy, please, please show yourself right now. 5 seconds later, a star wiggled out of the sky and shot right across the sky within about 30 seconds. And my ex-wife was actually there to see it as well too. And I said, I prayed for that. I asked for that, and that was my proof. That was what I needed. And so that was me saying, this was divine. This is beautiful. I got exactly what I asked for. And so I'm going to do it. Right. So this is what started me on that path and connecting with Adronis. And since he's come through, he has a very direct energy to him, but his energy and his love and his knowledge is boundless. And it's really just changed my whole perspective on what life is.
And how do you, bring in discernment into that as well? Because that's a sort of tough area, isn't it, in the channeling world?
Right, yeah. And the whole idea is if you want to bring a lot of discernment into it, you can. But really, it's about what speaks volumes for yourself. It's something you have to feel through the heart. So the discernment can't come from the logic. It needs to come through the heart, right? If your heart is just shining brightly and saying, this is truth, this is exactly what truth is to me, I can't prove another truth to another person, right? I can only share in regards to what is truth to me. And when that shines brightly, and I know that that radiance is there, and I said, yes, this is it, right? So there are certain things that Adronis has shared that people have been able to go out and research and have actually been able to validate. There are some things that we haven't been able to validate that represent more so of the journey of the soul, right? And that's something that the heart can only discern.
Why do you think an ET being? I mean, there's so many other channelers that channel guides or, other kind of entities. Why that particular one for you?
I think it just represents a certain magnetic property to it. There's a family relationship there. And with the knowledge that Adronis possesses, it is compatible with what I am able to assimilate as a channel. So, and I think this is how a lot of people have their own reactions and connections to certain entities. There's some type of property on a vibrational level magnetically that makes them cohesive together, because the aspect and energy of the entity they're channeling in comparison to them holds a very strong branch of compatibility. And that's what we're experiencing. So with Adronis coming through and sharing what he has, it's all compatible with the personality that I'm aligned with in this life.
And would you say this is part of your higher self as well that's coming through?
Yes, absolutely. I would say an aspect of higher self, not the higher self itself. When I've channeled the higher self, which I've done, there's no personality. It's all just raw data. It's raw source information coming through, and it's almost kind of like talking to a machine, but a machine of great love and great intelligence. But they don't have any particular type of personality to win you over in that sense, that there needs to be something there of an entertainment factor.
Yeah. So do you think you've been doing this in past lives then? I mean, do you think this is something that you've practiced before? Because it happened very quick for you, didn't it?
It certainly did. It was actually quite an acceleration that I was going through. Looking into some of my past lives through the Akashic Records, which is something I also read, I was looking back into monks and monks that I was a part of in several different lifetimes, priests, even a Christian priest. I was praying to God, and I was receiving harmonious, holy, glorious transmissions as well too. It even goes back into Egypt. It goes back into Atlantis with priesthoods and mystics and all that. So this has been something that's been very much a part of my life from what I've been able to witness going into those deeper states of consciousness. So this is something I would say that through many different lifetimes, I had to go through this quite quickly to catch up with the knowledge that I know right now to help myself and others.
Some channelers that I've met have been working on themselves for maybe 18 years or more. And I think the times that we live in now, it seems to be an acceleration that we don't need that much effort to practice it as we did before, maybe, or to be comfortable with knowing this is our truth. Or do we?
It would depend upon the person, because some people have a hard time digesting their own truth, right? Some people feel that the truth is their enemy. And as we know, the common phrase is that the truth can be a very hard pill to swallow. Some people are very much able to work with themselves, or able to go within themselves and feel very harmonious with what they're receiving as a transmission. There are those who are still having complications as it relates to truth. Truth feels like it's something that's almost an impossible achievement for some people. And so they may require many years. In fact, I've talked to psychics and channels who have been doing it 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they're still learning a lot about what is it they're receiving, about who they truly are.
What made you so comfortable with just knowing that this was your truth? How did that fit into your universe so easy?
I gave no resistance to it. And when I gave no resistance to it, I was basically just being an open book, because I learned to trust Adronis's perspective in regards to what he was sharing with me. There was nothing in anything that he has ever said that represented to a road of deception. It was always something that was on par relating to my life that was happening, or that something was going to happen, and those things came to pass. So he gave me no reason to create a state of deceptive skepticism. That wasn't within my mind. When he came through and he shared this information, there was an anchoring of trust that came together. So therefore, the aspect of truth that I knew I had to work on was well received in regards to that trust.
How much does the human being get in the way when channeling, normally?
Well, again, we would have to look at statistics with that. In regards to many channelers that I've seen, there's a few channelers I've met personally that are really great channelers that have really discerned themselves well. It's not something you can just jump into, right? Again, I've been doing this almost 10 years, and I'm still learning a lot of things. And for a person who says, I have all the answers, I have all the truth, maybe in delusion, right? It's about the idea of knowing that this is a craft. It's like asking an artist and saying, can you just go ahead and paint something like Picasso painted in one day? I said, well, no, of course not. I have to spend many, many years learning that craft. And channeling is no different. It's no more different than being a painter. It's no more different than being a dancer. You have to learn the craft. You have to work with it in that particular way. But we also have to watch out for messiah complexes, because that's something that can happen quite a bit with channels. And feeling that they get this really incredible information, they feel that they've been touched by the hand of God, and that everything they have received is the way. And we have to be careful with that. Each of us holds a piece of the puzzle that relates to the truth in a collective form.
Do you think we can all channel?
Yes. Every single one of us has the ability to channel. In our own way, we're channeling all the time because our personality is a channeling state. It may seem very limited, but the personality that we're going through each and every single day is based on what we've accepted as our truth, whether we feel it's positive or negative.
How would you define channeling?
Would be able to connect to the extension of yourself that exceeds all boundaries and barriers of yourself to understand more of who you truly are.
Yes. And it's almost like bringing in that greater part of yourself.
Yes, and we can say it as a greater part, but we could also look at it as just being naked, being able to take all veils off of yourself and realize this is my true being, this is who I am. And I'm not better than anybody because I have a few veils taken off. I'm not more farther ahead than a person because I have a few veils taken off. I'm basically just where I need to be, and the universe will arrange myself appropriately to the people that I need to interact with that are helping me to grow, helping me to challenge myself, and helping me to reach greater levels of truth. So we're never ahead of the race. We're just looking into different experiences that are more compatible with the veils we've taken off.
How do you know if a channel's compatible for you?
A channel is compatible for me. Well, again, it has to be with that mixture, right? There's that connection, there's that brew that happens. And it's something where you just feel that there's such a shining light to what they present that you know is in resonance. So I would say when you are in full resonance of something that makes sense to you, to what that entity is sharing with you, then that is basically your fit. That's what you know is your true self. Sometimes we may get messages that do not feel like ourselves. It may be doomsday messages. It may be Messiah messages. And we know that that's not part of ourselves. And you can always dismiss this as much as you need to. It's not about saying that as soon as you receive a transmission, you have to go through this. If it doesn't resonate with you, you can always put it aside, put it on the shelf. You don't need it.
So when you're giving a reading to someone, for example, it's not really predicting the future as such. It's not those kind of readings. This is more of a soul growth reading.
Yeah, Adronis has said many times there's no such thing as the future, right? We're not here to look into what's going to happen in 10 years and stuff. There's momentum, of course, but everything can always change. So when I'm working with a person, I'm helping them to empower themselves, not to feel that they need to run to me to hold my hand and feeling, Brad, what do I do? What do I do? Help me, help me. You have to run my life. And a lot of people have wanted to put me on pedestals, and I've been the first one to kick them down. I said, I'm not your deity. I'm not a God here. I'm not here to fix your life. And a lot of people will run to books. They'll run to authors. They'll run to other channels and say, what do I do? How do I fix my life? How do I fix my life? You have the answer to that. We can help point you in certain directions as we scan your energy. But really what we're here to do is help you understand the God within you, because all of us have God potential. We have no limits.
And when someone has a reading with you, I mean, really, they're just getting a reading from an aspect of themselves.
Correct. That's right. Yep. It's just it can be looked at as a polished mirror in that way. Sometimes they may look at their own mirror and say it's really, really gringy, and I'll go to Adronis or I'll go to another channel, and it feels like it's a really, really polished mirror. But even that polished mirror is showing you more so of the reflections of what has been gringy, to helping you understand this is what you can do to polish your own mirror down.
And you're someone who likes to channel really deep information as well.
That's right.
Yeah. Where other channels, you know, they seem to stay at a certain level, which is just where they need to be perhaps for those that are receiving the messages. Mm-hmm. But are we the block sometimes, do you think, as channelers, that we don't want to go further with the information for people?
Yes, and that's the whole idea, is that if a person feels very comfortable saying the same basic messages, it's something within themselves that they have not yet worked with to reach a compliance with. Once they are in compliance with that message, the message will change, but it will often repeat itself over and over again like a broken record until that person gets the message. Then when that happens, then they start to go a bit more deeper. But a lot of the common channeling messages are, we are all one, we are love and light, etc., etc. Those are the common messages, and even though they may seem redundant, it's what that person is seeing within themselves. Are they full of love and light? Are they one? Do they feel that within themselves? Or is there still a hesitation there?
So it's almost like the channel is just there to help that one person, the channeler,
that's
and
right.
If that's a side effect for other people that flock along with it, mm-hmm. Great.
Absolutely. There's people I've taught as well too that have only been able to channel one or two words, and that says relax, calm, right? Or relax, center. And they don't know how to relax and they don't know how to center. Once they're able to do that, now the messages continue.
And not all of us are going to be, channelers on a big stage, whatever it may be that you call success. But some of us, that channel or can channel, we can all channel. we're just channeling for ourselves or our family, maybe.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There may just be times where it's personal messages just for yourself, and it may be people for your family and your friends, or some people may want to go on a bigger scale. The reason being is maybe because they've been called that way. Sometimes there may be a fame complex as well too, and they want to just get out there and be famous. I want to be the next big channel. I want to be up in the A-list celebrities. And that's irrelevant, right? The whole idea is that if you're doing this work, and that's just my belief on the aspect, is that if you're doing this work, it's part of yourself. There should be no other reason why you're doing this other than this is part of your nature. If you want to take it to new heights, good, let the message speak for itself rather than one's own ego.
I wonder how much that resistance of the human being sometimes, and that resistance can be in some of the bigger name channelers as well. I wonder what that does to the work in a sense, how expansive it makes the work. Maybe are we limiting the work in a sense?
You're diluting it, because the whole idea is that if you're putting a fame property on your information, then that fame property creates a barrier, and only so much information can go in there. So there can be the aspect where someone like a psychic or a channel may start to receive information, but they can't go beyond the boundaries because their head is still stuck in the fame bubble, and it can't pop, and so they can't go any further past that bubble.
Do you think that's part of the soul's progression to have that fame?
Absolutely, they have to look at that. So they have to basically go into fame to realize that fame is unimportant.
Even though it was a fame that was kind of helping people?
Helping them to an extent to realize where they're restricted now based upon that limitation they placed upon themselves, to realize they can't go beyond that bubble.
Are you going beyond your bubble?
I'm hoping not. Like when I come into these interviews in this way, I do it for the message. I do it for the aspect of being able to share this information. Not because, hey, I want to be an A-list celebrity, I want to go hang out with the big celebs and all that. That's not at all in my interest. What I do is I come to different places, I help other people from all over the world that want to hear this message, whether it's through me, whether it's through Adronis, or whatever be any other particular aspect of me that wants to come through. But it's being able that the message itself is the importance. And even when I channel Adronis, he says, it's not about the messenger, it's about the message. If you let the message come through and what needs to be shared, rather than painting a picture on the person who's delivering this, rather than having a golden trumpet, look into the idea of the sound that the trumpet produces rather than the appearance of the trumpet. That's why I'm here.
And with Adronis, you can ask any question.
Any question.
But if Adronis did not want to answer that question,
it would be because of a free will violation often. So basically there are people that have the free will arrangement, and that free will is for them to achieve states of self-discovery, and it's not to be trodden on because that can affect their own development. So there's times where they need to look into that state of self-development through their own truth based upon that aspect of free will to decide exactly what their next step is, and that's something they have to feel for themselves.
Being humble as a channeler, is that important?
Very. The most humble channels are the ones that are able to channel the deepest. If you're not humble, you'll get shallow messages. It's because there's a lot of beliefs within yourself that still need to be addressed, and once those beliefs are addressed, you'll be amazed at how deep you can go.
But just going back to what you said as well, where if we're channeling the same thing over and over again, is that because the human being never heard it in the first place?
It's basically that there is a difficulty in being able to receive what's coming through, even if it's a simple message. And basically what can happen is when you have these simple messages, at times they can just be thought forms, right? So these thought forms come into your mind, and you're not actually channeling an entity. That entity is basically leaving that thought form behind and saying, hey, we're telling you, love and light, and trust yourself, and relax, and go calm. And if you can't do that, then that's going to be repetitive. So that thought form remains as that particular channeled source. It's kind of like answering an answering machine that's receiving that message, right?
And I guess you've been in situations where you've seen other channelers channeling, you've picked up on maybe what they're being told, and they're only kind of regurgitating half that information, or maybe not even that much.
Right. And I've discovered that the important thing is you want to test your entity. You want to test exactly what this being is attempting to share with you. If they say, hey, I'm coming in here and I'm this big, mighty being figure, etc. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to test you. And I'm going to say, okay, do you represent the highest love and passion for all? Right? And there's almost like a stumbling block, because when you're saying those words, you're reaching a heightened state of vibration. You're in a level of discernment and actually reaches your frequency on a higher level. And so when you're putting that forward, you're testing the entity. And this is what a lot of channelers do not do. They will feel something, they'll get it right away and say, oh my God, this is euphoric. They'll feel blissed out, right? And many of those things can actually be thought form traps, right? So it's almost kind of like that someone's dangling a fishing hook over and wants to get someone emotionally compromised so that they can take in that energy. So there are entity implants, there are entity intrusions that do take place because a person will be very gullible, and as soon as they get a really good message, they'll think that they're connecting with God.
What about truth?
Well, that's when they don't know what to discern the truth, right? They're excited about the premise that they've connected to something beyond themselves. They say, this is great, I'm talking to an ET, I'm talking to an alien, I'm talking to God. And they're not actually looking into the discernment of, are you really channeling that, or is that just an appearance?
And when people say, this is just my truth, is truth universal or is it perspective?
We do have one universal truth, and all truths on a genuine level lead to that road, lead to that source in that way. So basically it is true, we all have our own unique truths. Many people feel that they're talking about their truth when in fact they're not. They're actually talking more so about the ego's truth, and that just means get famous, get this done, take care of this, right? We have to discern that when you're looking at truth, truth has no passion to it. It has no real aspect of feeling that it's a should or shouldn't or would or wouldn't. It's something that you know is completely yourself, and it has no ambitions behind it. If your truth becomes ambitious, then that's looking at an ego thought form rather than a truth itself.
So would Adronis say that we all have an individual truth, dependent where we are?
I wouldn't say we'd have an individual truth. I'd say we have a soul truth, right? And it's that soul truth that we're attempting to connect with. You can't really have an individual truth because really the individual doesn't exist, right? The individual is part of the ego complex. So when we're looking at a soul truth and something this feels like my heart has opened up. I've said this, I've done this, and it feels right, right? And to that person, that's the rightness. And when they go into that particular path, that is the feeling reciprocation of that truth that they've discovered.
What does Adronis say for the reasons why we're here?
He basically says that this is a school, this is a master university, and that we're all here to learn about the reflections of ourselves, to look at what we don't want, so that we can therefore discover who we truly are.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes that can take many lifetimes. Sometimes people have been here thousands or many thousands of years to basically still understand what truth is, because they're still looking for it outside or under the couch when it's realized it's always been within the heart. And you have to work to surrender yourself. And when you work with surrender and calmness and centering, that's the path that's going to eventually discover what you would consider to be as a profound truth.
And we all come here for different reasons?
We all come here for our own reasons that we create. Really, the whole idea is the universe has no reason. If it had reasons, we'd basically have labels on everything, saying that if we have a continent here, we have to put all these reasons about why they're over here. The universe doesn't use labels. We do. The aspect of reasons and purpose is a human creation. It's not universal creation. It's nature that we're here. It's not purpose.
Just to be.
Purpose is a distraction, yes. So when you're really looking at the idea of being, because you're looking at everything that is causing distraction, you're looking at everything that's causing purpose, and these are the boxes and the cubes that you're putting yourself into that's telling you you're preventing yourself from looking at truth. Because it's my purpose to be a doctor, it's my purpose to be a lawyer, it's my purpose to be a teacher. All right, are you actually living everything within your life of that love, or do you feel that your love is only contained inside that box? So rather than living inside a box with that love, why not spread it all around your entire reality? Because you're now living in truth and nature rather than purpose.
What does living in purpose mean then? What would that look like for someone looking on the outside?
One will look at it as destiny. So when we look in the aspect of purpose, it's my destiny to be this person. It's my destiny to walk this path. It's my destiny to go this road. And that's what they feel can be some element of themselves, but it's not the entirety of themselves. I liken it to the idea of that if we look at ourselves an entire forest, we're only looking at ourselves to be a shrub, rather than the idea of the entire forest itself. When you're being the entire forest, you're being nature. When you're being purpose, you're only one element of that facet.
How's that changed you as a person, the work of Adronis?
I've become a completely different person from how I was a few years ago, because I was a very logical person. I was very much thinking on an intellectual level. I wasn't really in touch with my emotions very much, and I just wanted to get by and support well and make sure others did well. And I still do want to make sure others are doing well, but I realize I'm not responsible for them. And in the past, I felt like I was responsible for everybody. And so I've been able to take my power back and realize that as I elevate myself, I can work together to help elevate others. You have to be the example.
So you're living your teachings?
Yes, you have to.
What about other channelers out there, or even those who aren't channelers, that do not live their teachings?
there's still something that they have to look at that's unfinished, right? There's still something that's pulling their focus and saying, there's something here that I can't swallow. There's something, it's like I said, the pill of truth is a hard pill to swallow, right? And if you're not able to swallow that, then you're looking at something that's saying, but what about this? This becomes mightier than me, right? But everybody has the ability to go to that level. I certainly have had those moments where I felt that I couldn't swallow certain things, and I really had to break myself down more and go harder into myself and say, hey man, what can I do to let go of all of this? Because this emotion's dominating me, and this is what I feel a belief is doing, and I realized that was holding me back. And so I had to go into calmness, I had to relax, I had to center, I had to go inside and realize, that's what's been causing it. It's a trauma. I felt rejected, I felt abandoned, I felt abused, and that's why I held on to it. Then when I finally let that trauma go, the belief was gone.
So you've healed that aspect of yourself, but can you use that same healing technique for health issues as well?
Everything, yeah. Because really everything is just an emotional blockage. It's being negligent of your own physical body. And so when your physical body you're noticing these things happening in your physical body, you trace it on a mental and emotional and spiritual level. And when you start to discover, oh my goodness, this is where I feel this congestion in the heart, I haven't been eating well, it's because I've been feeling depressed about who I am.
Of course, Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet and also the modern father of holistic healing, he healed, probably 9,000 plus people.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Is that the same kind of technique that you would use for health healings, or does Adronis come from a different perspective in health?
There are certain forms of physical aspects, components that you can put into your body that can help, but it's not an immediate factor. It's more looking into the core healing, right? So if a person is feeling that there are traumas within their bodies, it's because there's traumas within their hearts, there's traumas within their emotions. Once that starts to be alleviated, now they start to naturally go on a path where they're actually taking care of their body again. So the body becomes a reciprocal of the truth that they now digest within themselves.
Can cancer be healed?
Yes, overnight if they can. If they really feel that will and strength, that they're able to dissolve this cancer. The only reason why cancer doesn't get dissolved is because they feel that cancer is a mightier word than themselves. As soon as someone says you have cancer, right, they feel frozen and they feel like they're defeated by that word, right? When you are able to say, hey, Brad, you have cancer, so what? Not anymore, I don't. And I live in that mentality, and that's it. Then that cancer no longer affects me because I no longer see it as mightier than me. I no longer see it as an impairment identity.
Where does God fit into all this?
Everything. Everything really relates back to God. We ourselves are gods, right? There is a one true God. There is a one infinite creator. There is the great Father in that way. And that we are the children of that God. It's kind of like looking at the aspect of the oversoul. The oversoul is branching down these other souls into other dimensions and retrieving all this information and bringing it back to the oversoul. Well, that's what the true God represents, is that it's branching all of us as souls, as spirits, down here into this realms, playing these particular games, having these interactions, and bringing all knowledge back to the Creator. So it's the Creator experiencing itself infinitesimally that really cannot be explained on a radical or logical level, that we are basically playing that out and bringing everything back infinitely to them, to the one.
Do you think we're all here to awaken that we are more than our bodies?
Oh yes, the body is just a tool. It's just a construct.
For those who I come across sometimes who will never have an awakened experience or do not believe in anything, just science, where do they stand in regards to Adronis' teachings?
They have to break themselves down until they realize that the mind and the heart is really the important factor here, right? We're here to honor and love the mind, the heart, and the spirit. And if you don't, you just feel that the body is just a flesh body, it's just some random accident, then you're going to be at the mercy in regards to everything that can happen to that body. If I throw a person into a chamber and basically take all the air away, what happens to that body? That body perishes. If I put a person into a flaming volcano, right, their body is completely evaporated, right? So all of these things that if we hold on to the body and feel that we're just some meaningless form of technology, in a genetic suit, then that's basically going to create a great limiting experience. And you just keep coming back and back and back until you realize there's more to life than the physical container.
And complete free will to do that?
Yes. You always decide that you come back here. No one is kicking you in the butt and saying, get back down there, and dragging you over here, right? Everybody that comes here says, I heard the call. I came to Earth because I heard Mother Earth calling to me and saying, I need help. and I came.
What about those channelers that I've come across that would say, maybe one would say there is karma, another would say no, there's no karma. One would say that there is purpose, another would say there is no purpose. So there's been a whole gamut of different things said.
Well, here's the interesting thing, is that paradox is always the answer. You exist in karma to realize there is no such thing as karma. You exist in purpose to realize there is no such thing as purpose. So whenever you're divided in those sections of saying karma, no karma, purpose, no purpose, look into the middle ground. Because basically, if we're creating the aspect of karma, that's a label we've created. If we looked into purpose, that's a label we've created, and that creates the infinity in between. So you play with purpose, you play with karma to realize it's never been a factor in your life. It has been the aspect of an invention.
Do you think some of these entities that come through people, which are only really aspects of us all, right? I'm only speaking to myself. When I speak to a Adronis, I'm just speaking to my higher self. So do you think that they're in such isolated places, maybe, some of them, that they're just on their own journey, highly evolved though, but really not aware of the others?
Some are not even highly evolved. Some of them are actually on a planet just like us, and they're living a life similar to maybe how we are. And many people will put them on a pedestal to feel that they are some higher evolutionary being, when it's really just another being sitting on a beach, channeling, connecting with another version of themselves to which we are experiencing. Just because you're channeling does not mean you're speaking to an almighty deity that's all-knowing, right? It all depends in regards to how finely tuned you create yourself to determine exactly if that person is a good source for yourself or not.
So sometimes we might just be channeling a parallel version of ourselves somewhere else.
That's right, yeah. You could be channeling a parallel stripper on another planet, stripping down for people and understanding her way of life, and all of a sudden she decides to channel and connect in that way. So basically it just reflects upon that person who may have also been a stripper in this lifetime, right? You're only becoming the state of intelligence that you allow yourself to be. And if you're not allowing yourself to be that great form of intelligence and accepting and open-minded, then the aspect of your limitations will become the result of what you channel.
But obviously that person that you're channeling, or the entity or Adronis that you channel, he's not just going to sit down and say, oh, it's channeling time because I know Brad's about to call me now, so I'm going to sit down and receive. It's almost like it's happening on another aspect, on another soul level, out of time.
Where he exists, there's no time, there's no space. It works for him rather than feeling it, then he works for it, right? So the aspect of space and time is not a factor in regards to the timing of how I channel him. He's always available. It can. If another being is on a space-time level as ourselves, then there can be certain points, periods that may be available and they may not be. I have certainly channeled beings like that, such as the inner earth beings, known as the Delphi, where they are actually only available in certain times of the day. But when I'm looking into Adronis, because he exists beyond the space and time bubble, he's no longer limited to the idea of a time.
So you've channeled inner earth beings. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like?
Well, they refer to themselves as Delphi. Now, I do refer to it as channeling, but it is actually, in that sense, a type of empathic interfacing. So it's almost like direct telepathy in that way. It's a little bit different than channeling because I'm not actually imposing myself to be that entity. It's kind of more so of a mediumship, but I refer to it as emotional or empathic interfacing.
And what is their purpose?
Well, basically, the Delphi exists within the Delphi in Greece, and that they have just wanted to come through to convey a message, right? A lot of their message was all about times are changing, there is going to be more notification about these inner earth beings as time progresses, and that there is talks right now of being able to bring humans into the equation relating to inner earth beings and being able to share space.
Amazing. But that's not something you channel all the time, though.
No, it was only a couple times to which I did. After that, the communication ceased.
Do you think it will always be Adronis that you channel?
I basically come to him because he is the one that feels the most trusting to me, because everything that he has shared, he's represented that through my own truth.
When you channel Adronis, are you kind of present? Are you aware that you're
I am, yeah. It's
channeling?
A very conscious channeling state. It's kind of like how you're staring at a piece of art on a wall. You know things are being said. You may not be paying attention to the words, but you get an idea of the overall themes that are being shared. So yes, I am still somewhat conscious to that connection.
So for those watching this that really want to connect to an aspect of them or something greater than them, what advice would you have for them?
Well, firstly, have patience, have calmness, realize that this is an art form, that this is a craft, and this is a skill that you are developing within yourself. We all have the capabilities to do it, but through patience and being able to discern as well too, as well as bringing your love forward, then in time you'll be able to discover something truly extraordinary that is representative of your own truth.
Well, I've so enjoyed speaking to you, Brad. I think it's beautiful what you're doing. You're a lovely soul. Let's bring Adronis through.
All right.
And I'll let you go down to do that.
Okay. I will go ahead and do that. We are here at this time, and we bid you greetings and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to all who are tuning in to this broadcast through your own collective consciousness. Thank you, and how may we assist you today?
Adronis, thank you so much for joining us.
We thank you as well.
If there was an important message right now, what would that be?
We will state that to all of you who are tuning into this interaction, that we simply represent a mirror for each of you. And this mirror represents that of what you would consider to be the purity of your own selves. And that through the purity that we hold, that we broadcast, and that we radiate through this channel now, that this is something that we want to share with all of you, to understanding the importance of truth, to understanding the importance of letting go, the importance of release, the importance of purging, the importance of calmness, the importance not to get attached into that which you understand is illusionary.
So, if I was to ask you, Adronis, if I'm right now with my own understanding of what this might be,
Yes.
and someone else has got a different understanding, am I using the wrong words to say they have a different truth to me?
No, not really. It's really the whole idea that, again, as Brad has stated, that when you're looking into the degree of truth, it is understanding that truth holds no effort behind it. It holds no demand. It holds no aspect of authority. Therefore, when a person is attempting to impose an idea or a belief upon you, then that therefore represents the opposite of truth. That represents condition.
Yes, because I'm willing to change. I'm okay with change.
Yes.
Once I know more or I know something different, and if it feels right, then let's go with it.
Correct. And no one is timing you. No one is saying you must go first into this finishing line. That your race is, in that sense, something of so great importance that you must get there first. It's the idea that none of you really are racing each other, because it is no race to greatness. It is the idea of actually becoming less that is actually helping you to become more.
When Brad first encountered you, did Brad have some sort of walk-in to allow you to come in?
It was not a walk-in experience in the best way that could be stated. It is more so in the idea that he was very much himself. But basically, in regards to how he has trained himself as a channel, he simply had an intrigue. He simply had an interest to all of this. And it was not something that represented an immediate shift altogether to who he is today. It took, again, a great deal of time, a great deal of transformation within himself, the idea for him to perform his own inner alchemy, to therefore move into the frequency that is the most coherent to us, representing that of a truth transmission.
So the questions I'm going to ask you now, they are a bit more basic, and this is for the pitch that we're recording, and we're going to go into some more complex questions.
Yes.
What is the purpose of the human experience?
Well, again, there really is no purpose. It's the aspect of the nature of the human experience is to come to a world that is filled with such contrast, to being able to understand all facets of yourself, to finally purify yourself through all of those levels of contrast that you realize is not your true intent and state of being. So the whole idea to where a person decides to have a job, where they must have family, where they must make lots of money, where they must have fortune, where they must have fame. Again, many of these particular things are part of the learning experiences that one will align to. And when they realize that all of those things have not made them happy, that is the realization of the truth that is speaking before them because of all the contrast they have played with in such a lifetime. And that's what Earth does as a master school.
Do the majority of us on this planet walk through with unhappy lifetimes, would you say?
Well, again, it can be a mixed bag in that sense. We would say that all of you have had some type of unhappiness being here on this planet, yes. Because again, that's all part of how you are able to look at yourselves coming onto a world where you do not remember who you are. You are basically blank slated and you have no idea of who you are, and that you require the aspect of the teaching of suffering to therefore showcase the idea of contrast that you don't prefer, so that you can therefore become eventually at some point the realization of what you don't prefer that therefore scores truth.
So we come here with a complete blank canvas of our connection to who we truly are.
Yes, as it is a controlled world.
Controlled by who?
It is basically part of what you would know as ancient priesthoods, or what you would understand as rulers of this particular world, that have actually had different forms of influences for beings that represent a solicitation to control dominance and conquering mentalities.
But isn't that just part of the human experience?
That's all part of the school that makes it what it is. That's how you have contrast on a world like Earth in that way, is to basically look at a planet that has basically been privatized by the means of a anti-free will aspect to which Earth represents. Earth basically was considered to be a slave world. So because many of you humans in that sense have been intervened upon throughout many, many centuries, throughout many, many millennia, going back into your ancient Egypt, into your ancient Sumeria, into your ancient Peru, into all of these different civilizations that have come and gone. How do you think they faded out of the picture? Because they kept going in directions that were not in harmony with their own truth. And when that is not in harmony, then that represents the aspect of a spillover. And so you have gone through all of these particular centuries and many millennia, throughout many different forms of ages, through these levels of reset again and again and again, in order to attempt to understand what you needed to do to discover harmony within yourselves that did not relate to the idea of conquest.
But as a soul, we knew all this before?
A soul does not discriminate between a positive and a negative. It simply experiences itself as it needs to therefore give the impression that contrast is available to all means. So a soul does not discriminate in regards to the aspect of a human ego.
But as a soul, we knew these conditions before we incarnated.
Of course. But the whole idea is, as we stated, there is no discrimination with a soul. A soul will gladly go into darkness to realize that that's all part of the property to move into light.
Did it know that it was going to take on a name and
of course, yes.
Sex?
That's all part of its archetype.
Was this planned before coming here?
Yes.
Where do we plan that?
Well, it does not come through your own rational mind. It comes through the idea that you are looking at things no more different than a film strip. And you're looking and realizing this is the monitor that holds the understanding of such a lifetime, where there are names, where there are society structures, where there are moralities, where there are values, etc. All of that is looked there, and from the soul's perspective and saying, this is something that will greatly tell me all about myself by looking at something that I am not. And so therefore the soul comes together and it volunteers itself to be of service, to be that experience. Some people will sacrifice themselves to basically convey a certain message in regards to what humanity is in its current state and what it can become as a result of such a sacrifice, for one example.
Do us humans do things the most difficult way?
You could say that. In one of the most challenging ways, we would say. We would not say most difficult, but again, there are challenging ways because you are still attempting to understand the inflections you've placed upon yourself based upon the decisions where you feel you must enact yourself on a certain level of quality based on what you have discovered through purpose, through meaning, through value, and through that aspect of morality. Morality becomes your compass rather than the aspect of truth. That is why many of you are confused.
So when we cross over, we go back home.
In a way, yes. Now, the whole idea is that if a person is still attached to this planet, and if they still feel that there is much on this world that they are here to do, they will go back into the astral realm. They will still deal with many of those particular limiting beliefs that they have imposed upon themselves, and realize that in order for them to clean this up entirely, they must go and incarnate again on the world. And so that is what they do. Not everybody goes home right away, but everybody has the capability to go home once they are able to transcend more beliefs that keep them confined to such a world.
What is it like to pass then? Do we get greeted by our loved ones?
If you wish. Again, the whole idea is that it really is up into the love bond that you have between a loved one and yourself. So, for example, if a mother passed away who really deeply loved you and you deeply loved her, when you leave the physical body, yes, she could be right there waiting for you.
Is that the full intact, aspect of that original person that you met, or is that
It would be a soul equivalent to that person, yes.
So that person's not moved on, and we're connecting with an aspect?
They would decide to wait, because basically how you incarnate is through soul group collective consciousness. So basically, in that sense, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your best friend, your co-workers, your boss, etc., may have all had a contingency of different lives together, because that's the soul group that you have aligned yourself to work with. And because you all work together in that soul group and it remains the same, say, for example, when a person leaves the body, that soul group therefore waits for each other so that they can therefore incarnate again into other forms that represent certain themes that need to be explored to create liberation effect.
Have you gone through that process?
In our ancient past, you could say we have, but that is no longer the game that we play.
Are you in the same spirit realms then as that?
We would exist in what you would know as a higher plateau of the astral realm, or existing in what you would know as a sixth density level of consciousness.
Interesting.
So basically, you could understand us as starlight consciousness in a certain way, although we can take form if we wish. We are no longer in that sense confined to the idea of feeling. That is just a physical body that is unchangeable. Truly, all of you have the capability to change your bodies any way you wish, but you have not developed your mind into that particular type of proximity to actually allow that to happen. You have become, shall we say, completely content with the appearance that you have, even if you dislike it.
What is the one thing we're trying to do here?
Well, again, as we've stated, is that Earth is a master school. And as we stated, while you come to this planet, you are looking into all these levels of contrast that give you an impression, showing you how you have limited yourselves. You're all here to become gods. That's the whole idea. So you really have two choices in life. Become a slave to the world, become a cosmic god. Your choice.
How do we make that choice?
Well, again, this is where we're saying is that you need to look at all these things that you are voluntarily limiting yourself as. When you say, I am not a godlike being, I am very limited and I can't do anything, then that is you limiting yourself to a world slave. When you're looking at it in the other way and saying that I'm completely liberating myself because I've done all of these wonderful things in helping to transform myself, I'm moving closer and closer to that of a cosmic god. It's not to the idea where the physical body must be your cosmic god chariot, but it's your mind, it's your heart, it's your essence of being that aligns into that particular property to where the body itself can now be left behind as an anchor, and you can now explore the entire universe. You could, if you wanted to, take the body with you and refine it into a degree where it can become light. Some just choose not to do that because they realize it's just a vessel that can be left behind.
There seems to be some resistance with other channelers to want to go deeper. Yet I feel less resistance here right now with you. Why is that?
Well, basically, as Brad has stated, is that when channelers are not able to go deeper, it's not that they are unwilling to. It's the idea that there are certain facets in the way that are preventing themselves from going deeper. The whole idea is that the messages that they have received, they may share it with others, but they may not realize that it applies to themselves as well. You're not just conveying these messages for the sake of others, but through yourself, because there is nobody else here. You're the only one. So in a way, Brad himself has been very receptive to demonstrating these messages through himself to basically create that inner alchemy effect, to make him lesser and lesser in the forms of belief and become more and more receptive to the aspect of universal information. That's primarily how it works. When a person is not able to digest a message that is coming together through their source, and they feel that they are still limited in that particular regard, that source cannot reveal any more information until a stepping stone has therefore been granted by the work of the message that they have applied upon themselves.
Yet they may have what we may call a large following on this plane.
In a way, yes, but that really doesn't matter. Because the aspect of the plane is that people are addicted to the message or messages that they may have. And because they have the message and messages that may have been very neatly brought out in that way, or again, conveying something of great intelligence, they have not been able to work past that phase, and therefore they remain confined based upon that idea and impression of that limiting belief that is preventing them from understanding and accessing more universal information.
So what benefit is it for you that we ask deeper questions, or we try to go deeper in our knowledge of what this is?
Well, it is not so much as a benefit for us, it's more so in the idea that it is also a benefit for yourself, is that you're just reaching the same plane that we are on a conscious state. And so therefore it allows more of a deeper interaction. It's like the idea of how a person is very, very far away, and you're telling him how to get closer to you. And that's all we're really doing with all of you, is we're telling you how to get closer to us, so that you can move into our density, or perhaps even higher than our own density, to connect with intelligences that are more so in the ripeness of aligning to your own truth transmissions, that allow your body, your mind, your heart, your soul to grow to much more exponential levels, to where we are now parallel in that beingness of co-planar states.
But has everything already happened? Have we already reached that state?
Yes, but you are not experiencing it through your physical domain, because you are limited to a physical body based upon the limitations and beliefs you have implied upon yourself.
How many times have we reached that state?
In regards to this lifetime?
Potentially.
Well, in this lifetime, you may have shards of that. You may have moments of great clarity, but again, you may feel and dismiss it as something that may be imaginary. So it all depends in regards to you owning that particular state of truth and saying, this is my truth, this is who I am without boundary, I am without limit, I am without layers. And when you live in that context, therefore what you see briefly can therefore become the totality of your life in that state, as long as you make it the truth of your own truth.
And is there parallel aspects of us?
Of course.
And are they experiencing something similar?
Well, they only represent the domain to the theme that you are exploring based upon your interactivity of encountering a state of being in that moment to which you have encountered. So basically, in the simplicity way, you may see yourself as a store clerk. Just because that store clerk is there does not mean that you have to concern about their advancement. It just represents that you come across a mirror of yourself that is showing this other parallel version, because there is a magnetic property of cohesion between those two beings in that moment. You do not know exactly what's going to happen to that store clerk while you're looking at them, but you know that in that moment you met eyes, and there is a similarity of synchronicity based upon how you met the parallel versions of yourselves.
But is that not just the soul, which is just so expansive, having another aspect of itself out there, and another experience?
It is the idea of breaking the threshold of linearity. And it is the linearity that basically creates the idea of feeling that there's just you in this physical body, and that there's only physical limitation upon this planet. So as you therefore have an aha moment in that sense, you may see many different parallel versions of yourself standing in the same room as you, because now you're looking at yourself in a much more deeper contrast level to helping you better yourself. So therefore, the aspects to where parallel intrusions come together is the idea of looking at all these different mirrors, because you have reached a state of greater choice based upon what that person implies as a meaning to yourself.
But it is still us.
It is, indeed. Your soul is a continuum of expression. It is infinite. All lives exist within it. Your soul is also a program. It is an archetype. It is a pattern in regards to a cyclic conveyance of energy and mind, brewed together, bound together, to helping it understand its own way back to the Creator.
So even when I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to myself.
Correct. Always. There's only you here. So you're just speaking to a subconscious version of yourself that is representing Brad's energy and our transmission of truth, together with you as a means of helping you understand, here's a nice mirror, if you want to look at it, how does it make you feel?
How does it make you feel for my mirror to you?
We are always very much loving and appreciative of your mirror. Therefore, we hold no judgment nor criticism upon it. For it is the idea of all experiences that bring us an appreciation to all that creation can reflect as a facet of it being expression, to which you are. You're one facet of an endless facets, to us, equal in appreciation. Therefore, we have no expectations of you. And as we have no expectations of you, we have no relationship to the aspect of meaning, to what we feel you must be, because that's not your position in our eyes to reach a state, a level of acceptance.
So parallel universes, or parallel I's, or you's, or me's, could be another way of saying, another channeler called it looping, as in we've done this before in different ways.
In different ways, yes, versioning. Basically what you would understand as your own saying that would represent those who cannot learn from their history shall repeat it. And that's basically what's happening, is that you're going through different versions of yourself over and over in similar agendas, even reversioned in regards to the times that you're existing right now, yet the essence in regards to the message remains the same. That's what you're saying in regards to looping the similar situation, the hamster on the wheel effect, as we term it.
A bit like the movie that we did, Groundhog Day.
Correct.
Until he can find love.
Until he can leave samsara. And basically, as he leaves samsara, you now enter a new rendition of life, rather than repeating the loop over and over and over again until you learn the lesson. And that is how you transcend samsara.
Were other aspects of us having this conversation in different ways aware that we could get off the loop, or we are even on a loop?
That would depend if you connect with them, but yes, such existences of conversation do happen, yes.
So has there been an acceleration in their soul growth from understanding
It's not so much about attempting to understand where they stand, as more so it's more important about where you stand, because they're only representing a reflection of your progression and transmissions of realization at that point. They're only here to serve that mirror image through coherency. Where they go is not something for you to see nor need to speculate on, because that's not the point of you receiving that transmission. It's the realization that you intersected another parallel version of yourself as a means of saying this is what you can become also if you so choose, or this is what you're transcending past.
So could this be an important time for those watching this, that they could surpass a level at which they're at now and go beyond that?
Yes, completely.
What would that look like, and going beyond what?
Well, going beyond the aspect that you're limited to the aspect of belief that creates such a reality where you feel impaired. Therefore, it's going past the state of impairment. It's going past the state of imbalance, because you feel that you may not like your life, or you may not like even who you are. And therefore, when you reach a realization that this is all part of the aspects of contrast that you've been playing with, now you're able to completely better yourself through that realization. So the realization is the salvation that brings you into a higher liberated state of spirit. So realization, salvation, open-mindedness, interconnection to all other forms of your life that you know is the purity of yourself, and you feel it in your heart so strongly you can't even express it in words. That is your truth. Truth is something which cannot be defined, and it is not something that can ever be changed. You can't change truth, because that's your nature. So nature itself is truth. Truth itself is nature. As long as you're constantly playing around with all of these limiting beliefs, you are continually implying yourself that you are impaired. So to move past impairment is to align together with your own truth by being humble to your impairment and loving to it, so that it can now become harmony of truth.
And when this awareness reaches new heights, and you are then shifting into realities that you would really like to choose, or you're
Correct.
more compatible with?
Yes.
So when we say, for example, we were on the brink of war with North Korea, but
Yes.
yet that's not appeared in our reality.
Many of you have selected a truth that is more so appropriate to the collective consciousness that you're existing in through this reality.
And another version of me is actually going through other timelines
Where they could be at war, yes. But you do not concern yourself about that aspect, because again, it's only attempting to feel that you must save all parallel versions, when all they're doing is just being an example of what not is, in that sense, is appropriate for you to look at. So you're seeing something that has already reached a state of premise. So if you're looking at a version of yourself that says, oh my goodness, look what's happening, North and South Korea are going to war with each other, you're looking at something that you have transcended. That version will always exist. You can't change that. But where you are right now, as it stands into the continuity of your being right now, has been the result of the choice of what you have on a soul level chosen to experience through the peace of that particular nation rather than its conflict.
Which is a bit like the Mandela effect.
Yes.
Where things seem to be different to what they were.
Correct.
Is this a new type of evolution that mankind's going through?
Well, you've always had Mandela effects through many different times. It's just something that you're now noticing much more on a collective level.
By looking into these ideas a bit more, are we evolving the human body as well? Are we evolving everything?
Yes, everything is going along for the ride throughout your transformation of evolution.
What could that do for us in the longer or bigger picture?
Well, many of you will discover that extrasensory perception will become more fundamentally increased through that state of transformation that you're going through. Many of you will become much more lighter in the body. You may notice you have change in diets. You may notice you may eat less. You may notice that your memory may improve. You may notice that you have much more improved cognitive functions. You may notice again that you have a higher sharp state of clairvoyance or other means of extrasensory perception. So basically your body is refining itself as you allow it.
Right. Yet we are still along the ride having people around us who are really, on a different course as well.
And that's their own choosing. But again, if you're looking at something to where you're putting so much attention to that person who's on a different course, what's causing you to have so much attention on that person? It's because often you want to save them.
Yes.
And that's the whole idea. But again, as we said, that's not your job because each of you have free will. Because each of you have free will, you're not responsible for each other. All you're here to do is be the example of the pure truth that sets you free. And if people want to follow along with you, they will magnetically align to you coherently. That's how it works.
Right.
Now, many of you are very compassionate and loving souls, and that's very commendable. But it's the whole idea that put all that compassion and love into transforming yourself and now walk the earth as that example. And that's how you're helping others truly.
And just remind us, when do we know that we are living a life that's just, we can look back and say, this is the best time ever?
When there is no question about that statement. When you say that statement and you are behind it 100% with your own truth, there is no impairment within that statement. That's how you know you're living something pure. It's like knowing that when you're in love, if you're in love with somebody, you don't need somebody else to tell along and say, am I in love with that person? You know 100% you're in love with that person. It's the same feeling. And so your feelings will not lie to you. And when you're in alignment with those feelings, there's no doubt and hesitation within your mind that where you are right now is the fit to your beingness. That's where you belong. That's the unchangeable truth.
Is there an evolution in channeling as well as we grow?
Of course. Again, as we stated, that the depth is the aspect of the confirmation to that channeling growth.
And there'll be others way beyond me that will be bringing out other information that's, for me right now, is unattainable because I'm at this level.
There can be. Doesn't mean that it will be, but there's always the possibility. Again, it all depends in regards to the interaction of those that witness such a transmission like this to determine, is this something that I want to do as well, and bring it about in a different way. It does not mean it has to overshadow you. It's just the idea that there is a difference of expression. Really, there is no significance or insignificance in all of creation. It's all just the aspects of differentiations that have been therefore implied into some correction of competition or feeling that something needs to be compared to. That's again part of the human ego.
And finally, as we grow in this new understanding, are we allowing direct contact with other species out there that would also benefit us and them to collectively rise together and meet each other?
Well, there's one right here that you're doing that with, just in this way. But yes, this is again what is something that is going to take past together, is that when all of you come together and realize that what you wish to do with your planet is share it with other civilizations, and you're seeing how you're taking care of yourselves, you're taking care of the planet, then this is an invitation for others to come together that you are personally inviting to share the plane with you. So, yes.
So when people say, contact's going to happen in my lifetime, it probably has.
In their own way, yes. It does not mean it has to happen collectively, but it can always happen very directly through your own being, just as you're having a contact right now.
Well, Adronis, if there's any last message?
Well, again, as we've shared with everybody else, look into your hearts. Look into what you're doing right now. Is it the most beautiful thing? Is it that which represents your true heart? Or is there something you need to look at? Remind yourself to look at that. Bring love into the forefront of your life. Create a wellspring of love as great as your oceans and saturate all the lack within yourself. And that is how you move into a truly multidimensional, empowered being of creation. We thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction. I am Adronis of Sirius. We now return to the conduit. We will speak to you again, as now as forever. All is one, and love is essence. Goodbye for now.